Welcome to Learning Unleashed, the I4PL Toronto Chapter's podcast. I'm Karen Smith, and today I'm meeting with Megan Mackrory. Megan is a health and performance coach. Megan works with executives and high potential leaders, helping them achieve their greatest level of health. Hi, Megan. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Karen. I'm excited to be here.
Terrific. So tell me, what types of challenges are professionals experiencing when it comes to employee health and wellness?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to this. I think most companies have established some sort of corporate wellness program. You know, they've put their budget and their focus on improving the general health and wellness of their employees and of professionals. But what I find is the programs are valued, but they're kind of underutilized. So what you'll find is your senior executives are most likely not tapping into these wellness programs, which may include, educational seminars, or a lot of companies will do incentive programs for exercise. And I just find that there's a gap in who's utilizing these programs. So it's great that they want to improve productivity and focus and, employee engagement and retention and create sort of an inclusive culture. But there's no customization. I find with wellness programs, they're not really based on individual needs. So what tends to happen, like I said, is the people that are very keen on improving their health already, they tend to invest in these programs. And it's really important to tap into the senior executives who are probably having a very high level stress, less work-life balance, and they don't have that customized coaching or consulting, which is kind of where I come in.
Wonderful. Well, when you think of total compensation, it is a shame to hear that people aren't using the programs that well. Yeah. In learning, we always focus our approach on a target audience. So who do you typically work with?
Right. Well, I typically choose because I do believe you tend to attract the type of clients you want to work with based on, what you sort of stand for. So when I say I choose to work with leaders who are open, that's just based on my past experience. I find those who are open to self-growth and they really want to understand the impact they have towards their employees and towards their direct reports. I find this is typically my target audience, high functioning senior professionals. I do work with all types of individuals. I'm not a person doesn't need to be at a particular level for me to work with them, but I tend to find the executives have the means and understand that this is an investment in their general health, and they want to kind of set the tone for their employees, and they want to be, a positive role model when it comes to their health. So I tend to want to work with people who, like I said, are perhaps high in emotional intelligence, have maybe a transformational leadership style, and they understand the repercussions of how they present themselves to their direct reports. So that's in a perfect world, someone who's very self-aware and open. But I do also find there is room for executives who've never really taken a look at themselves. And what I mean by that is they haven't ever really reflected or done any sort of self-growth digging, but they're open because they see that they're stunted perhaps in their role. They may not know why they're not being presented a promotion. And so it's hard to say. I'm not particular to one type of person, but I generally am looking at people who have all the success in their professional life, but they want their health and wellness to match that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So why is taking care of your health as an executive so important?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because in my profession, I think it's common sense, right? So when I think of health, I'm like, well, of course you should take care of your health. It's so obvious, but I understand in the professional realm, in the corporate realm, it's all about results. It's all about efficiency of time and effectiveness of your resources. And yeah, it would be ideal if you're healthy, but it's not actually a job requirement, right? So I think most executives believe taking care of their health is is important because it's something they've been told they should do. They check. It's almost like they like to check and check off a box on a list, right? So most of them are going to the gym, hiring a trainer, working with a nutritionist because they know that's what they should be doing. They know they've gotten to a certain financial level where they can afford those things. But I think that something that I bring to an executive's mind is the things that the reasons why they should be taking care of their health, what they should know, as opposed to what they do know. And building a proactive practice of looking at someone's behavioral patterns, diet and exercise regime, mindfulness, more of the emotional components that make up their decisions and what drives them in the workplace. I find it opens their mind to a brand new perspective on health. It's not just about I go to the gym and I try to eat healthy, because that's such a small portion of what being healthy really means.
For sure. And you talk about being open-minded and bringing it to, and understanding it. But I don't know, how much does physical health impact their mental health?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, the research is just validating more and more how there is a direct correlation with physical, mental, emotional health, how all of these factors are intertwined. You may think you're physically healthy and actually have a poor mindset, which can ultimately cause more inflammation in your body. And then, you're on the hamster wheel of reverting back to trying to take care of your physical health. So it can be a bit of a trap. So the brain and the body are very much connected. And I always say this to clients that I work with who have a very high stress tolerance. I usually will say to them, you may have a high stress tolerance, so you have everything under control. But the reality of your subconscious mind and your body is that physiologically it believes it's being chased by a tiger. So in those quick moments of stress, it can be 25 different stressors a day that kind of pop up. Their body goes into what we call fight or flight. So it's the sympathetic nervous system reacting. But because they are so level-headed and they're able to provide a solution cerebrally, they don't actually recognize the stress. So what happens is they end up with all this inflammation in their body, which usually transfers into general anxiety or stress. And there's just this, there's this constant battle of physical, mental health that they don't even realize is going on. And again, all the research points to our gut and all the dysfunction in our gut when we are stressed. So diet and exercise, of course, is important and seems like the obvious candidate for being healthy, but really at the end of the day, mindset. And when I say mental health, I really mean mindset, having a healthy mindset, knowing when your thoughts are appropriate and when your thoughts are destructive, and how that can affect your physical presence. It's really incredible.
So do you find that they're coming to you late in the game? So you're saying, this person seems to be able to handle stress. They work under a tremendous amount of pressure. They're not noticing what it's doing to them physically, or at least not early in the game. Exactly. Do you find that they come to it later, that more executives are less and less proactive? They're reactive to their own health?
That's a very good question. So they will do the traditional obvious things. They will go to the gym, hire a trainer, try to eat healthy. But of course, as most executives know, they're drinking wine at lunch, they're drinking wine at dinner, and so they're doing the best they can. But yes, when they come to me, they're usually coming to me to kind of check on those aspects that they're already doing. And the reality is they're in a reactive state. So they don't know why, their joints hurt. They don't know why their back hurts. And yes, sometimes it is a lack of functionality in their movement patterns and their training. They're not actually training effectively, but a lot of the time it's systematic inflammation that has built up over years of all their accomplishments, right? They've gotten to this incredible level as a professional an executive, but the body is now in this chronic stress state. And so we do a lot of first creating awareness of these are not normal things. It's not getting old. People think, oh, I'm just getting old, my knees hurt. And it's usually actually completely reversible, unless I'm not a doctor. I don't want to say that everything that they do is reversible, but a lot of the time it's really a matter of managing stress and rewiring the neural pathways in the brain to fire differently, to not react so quickly to a stressful situation. It's really quite a formula, but if someone works with me over time, they tend to really start to see the differences with just little changes.
And those changes, do you think they would also, getting healthy would also impact or influence the relationships that they have at work and at home?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know you're irritable until you're not, and you don't know you're moody until you're not, right? And you don't know you're stressed until you're not. I usually will work with someone on their professional relationships, as in, whether it's colleagues or direct reports, and what's that dynamic. But more importantly, when this person becomes more aware of their mind, their body, they are a kinder, compassionate person at home. And so, yes, part of our being healthy is having the emotional capacity to understand the importance of those relationships and how we affect other people's energy. And I think when someone is naturally high in emotional intelligence, they understand these things, but getting healthier would just allow them to see situations differently. They would have less brain fog, less, inflammation in the brain and in the body, and maybe calmer at handling a situation. So, I tend to tell clients that when we're clear and when we have true clarity in our own brain, we tend to have more capacity for others energetically. So physically, we have more to give, And then the other reason, obviously, for having how health affects our relationships is you're building a community of like-minded people. You can really bond with colleagues or with your partner on becoming healthier and becoming more conscious.
I love that. I love building a community.
Yeah.
So when you work with an executive, is it typically one-on-one, or when you go to a company and approach a company, are you looking to work with a team of executives? Can you tell me a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, like anything in life, with camaraderie and community and teamwork, the most effective use of my services is definitely when, a small executive team is all on board. I do emotional intelligence quotient testing on everyone. We build implementation plans and action plans that are all private and are, confidential and customized, so that we're seeing changes and growth in everybody. But to be honest, getting buy-in from an entire executive team is tough. So I do tend to work one-on-one with executives. And then what happens is they may find through our results that they are referring me to their team, and it can kind of build that way. Of course, when someone gets healthier, even mentally, emotionally in touch with themselves, it affects, there's a ripple effect, right? So it can affect the team and the way that person interacts with the team and setting boundaries with those people. So yeah, I do find working with a small team of executives all working towards the same goals is ideal. But from an HR, from a buy-in standpoint, sometimes there are not resources allocated for that, or, someone will come up with an excuse like time, but definitely everyone's going to be better if they're all working towards something like this. But, it just depends on the, on the goals of whoever I'm working with.
Sure. And if you're working with one, you can have a tremendous influence, as you said, an effect, an impact on the others, and may bring them to the table when they were at first adverse to it, right?
Yes, exactly. So, of course, everyone will see growth and change if they're all working together. But, pre-COVID, I would say that was something that companies liked the idea of, but weren't ready to invest in. And I find post-COVID, companies and executive teams are a lot more open to how can we manage the health and wellness of our senior leaders.
Yeah, because we're all struggling, right? It's a different time, and being very compassionate and considerate, and we are worried about health. We've never been more worried about health during this time.
And I think it's important to note that I think why senior executives and leaders get ignored or neglected is because they had the capacity to get where they were by their own hard work and discipline and high, emotional intelligence and relationships and performance. And so what tends to happen is, generally speaking, the wellness services are not being offered to them because they are kind of expected to take care of themselves. So we know this. We know that people who can handle a lot, they will take on their own stress and they will kind of bury that down to take care of others, especially if you're leading a team. So I think coming in and having a conversation about, well, who's looking after you, that tends to be an afterthought for a lot of successful leaders.
Sure. So is there a formula that you use, like an executive performance success formula? Is there such a thing?
Yes, in theory, there is always a formula. In application, I mean, that's up to the executive if they want to follow the formula. But I've come up with the concept that health plus sustainability equals improved performance. So a lot of people want a quick fix. They want extremes. Everyone's on the newest diet trend. These things don't work. Mm-hmm. You cannot sustain a long-term change from an extreme set of behaviors. So it's teaching people what are the things that are going to help you build into your lifestyle and your professional life to keep you sustaining this forever. We don't tend to think about long-term. People try to think about, the vacation they're going on. Well, no one's going on vacation anymore, but you know what I mean? Sure. They tend to think about, how can I quickly get to this place I want to be? And if it took you 50 years to develop, a critical feedback loop in your mind, and you're hard on yourself and you expect perfection, I mean, it's going to take some time to build a different path for yourself where you're actually in a healthy state of mind. So getting them to understand you don't need to exercise 7 days a week. You need to prioritize your time so that you can exercise X amount of days a week forever, and so it's teaching them how to sustain and what healthy looks like.
And especially during right now, I think about, we all know that stress kills, but stress levels are at a different level than they've ever been, I think, for a lot of people running organizations right now. So how, how does what you do with executives help them better manage stress?
Yeah, there are a lot of ways that I can help an executive get some form of result when it comes to health. And I won't get too much into the emotional side of health, but you have physical, mental, and emotional health. Physical can be anything, helping someone learn how to breathe, figure out where their diaphragm is. Do you know how many people have no idea where their diaphragm is? And Karen, I'm not implying you don't know, but you go Google where your diaphragm is, I will understand, because most people have no idea where it is. And they have no idea the power of our slowing down our breath when we are in a stressful state. So teaching them how to breathe, teaching them how to mobilize their body. A lot of people are in chronic pain sitting at their desk. You shouldn't be in chronic pain. You can rewire your posture. You can learn alignment in your body. General, obvious exercise. That's another way. Outsourcing them to, a host of practitioners, from an RMT to a chiropractor, to an osteopath. I kind of do an assessment of what physical aspect is their body under stress, and how can we find a solution for that. And then mental can be anything from meditation to using a biofeedback device. And I can kind of explain what that is, because I do find executives have like I said, they're very high functioning. Their attention span is very hard to hone in. And so when people hear the word meditation, they instantly think, I can't do that. I don't have an hour, I don't have a half hour to go lie down and put on this music. And that's really not what it's about. It's about being present and kind of centering the mind, even for a split second. So I do work with, some people may have heard of a company called Muse. I work with a Canadian company called Unite, and they have these devices that are almost like an app on your phone. And it reads the neurofeedback that's going on in your brain, or they do heart rate variability. So basically, you learn how to train through your breath, how to bring yourself into a meditative state. So I find those types of devices work well for executives because they gravitate more towards the technology as opposed to your traditional meditation.
Sure.
Yeah, and then emotional aspects of managing stress. So learning how to feel the sensations in your body when you are stressed out. Is it in your heart? Is it in your gut? Is it in your throat? Being mindful, being aware of how a stressful situation affects you emotionally. I think a lot of people don't think they're emotional beings, but we are. And if you think you're not, it's actually just because you're trumping your emotional state with your cerebral, with your mind, with your brain. So it all depends on what someone's area of opportunity is. And then I learn where and how they need to manage the stress through those sorts of mediums.
Well, and you pointed out earlier, that not everybody's taking advantage of their benefits or the fact that they have enough money to invest in their health outside of their benefits, and how much they would gain from doing so. So I love that. And I do think that people tend to enter they tend to skip these steps in healthcare and land into prescriptions and surgery or whatever when there was some preventative steps that they could have taken.
Exactly. And that's what this is about. It's about believing you can truly rewire your body, your mind, your brain, because you can. And they're proving over and over that we have the capacity to change our course. We have the capacity through epigenetics to change the outcome of a disease that may be genetically in our DNA. It's incredible the power we have. And I think if only people were more exposed to the fact that they have that sort of power. And not only that, these large, banks and law firms, they provide excellent benefits. And there's a host of practitioners that can be helping them get to these results even quicker.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You said emotional intelligence a couple of times, and I feel like we should pause on that.
Yeah.
And maybe you can explain how that's part of your coaching recipe.
Yeah, absolutely. So I use the EQI, which I would assume anyone in any sort of talent management position would be familiar with. It's the number one most scientifically validated emotional intelligence test in the world. And actually, people don't know that Air Canada pilots are tested with the EQI to determine their level of adaptability, which I find really interesting.
That's awesome.
But yes, it's a huge aspect that I use as a assessment to mark where someone's gaps are. So for example, for those who don't know, it's a set of competencies, anything from interpersonal relationships to intrapersonal relationships to problem solving, flexibility, adaptability, empathy, etc. Yes, this is actually a huge component of my formula. So in my previous life, I worked for the EQI, the publisher of the EQI. So it's the most scientifically validated emotional intelligence assessment in the world. And it helps me determine where someone is at and where their areas of opportunity are when it comes to, their soft skills. So it's a general range of competencies, anything from interpersonal skills to intrapersonal skills, problem solving, adaptability, flexibility, and empathy. And so by using an assessment, one, I have some sort of, quantitative, qualitative measure, but two, it allows me to see how does this correlate with their personal life and then with their professional life and their relationships. So it allows me to see someone's ability to grow, learn, and adapt. If someone scores low on their EQ or EQI, it's not the end of the world. It definitely is a much harder hill to climb, but the research does validate that one's emotional intelligence can improve. But someone who has a high level of self-awareness is definitely going to be much more open and adaptable to my coaching. But again, I do find I've worked with all types of personalities that there definitely is a way in with someone who's naturally maybe technically savvy and very skillful and smart, but may lack on the the side of their emotional capacity. But like I said, it's a huge part because it's a formula. It's part of my formula, and it really helps me identify, without wasting a lot of time, how to build that implementation plan for someone, with the mindset that there's going to be some gaps and there may be some bumps along the way, and trying to actually prevent those from happening.
But the scientific validation behind it, I think, is very appealing to people, right? And there's this, it's not just go out and start exercising. There's a lot that you're offering that makes a lot of sense to me, and certainly sounds like it's quite a process.
Yes, for sure.
One of the terms that gets kicked around a lot now, and I think maybe you could clear it up for us, is the term mindfulness. So how would you describe that?
Yes, it's such a trending term these days. Mindfulness and vulnerability are very popular terms. So mindfulness can mean many different things. How I personally like to explain it in the most simplest form is all it is being present and conscious of your current state or your current situation. This is not a timed situation. Mindfulness can be a split second in the morning when you normally would be rushing in and out of out the door with again, in a normal situation, and you stop and you look at the flowers on your kitchen table, and you actually focus and say something to yourself about the texture or the color or the smell. That is a moment of mindfulness. And it's incredible how, we're so quick to ignore, dismiss things in our body because we're never mindful. We're never present. So mindfulness really means being present, and we can't possibly expect ourselves to be present 24/7, but I can teach someone, and you can learn on your own to let your feelings come through in that moment and have a grateful opportunity, just for a split second in your day. And I definitely think with COVID and all the isolation, we have all really had this natural appreciation, right? For nature, for people who travel and never get to see their kids. So just being present in even, like I said, 5-10 minutes, 5 seconds, it really will rewire the brain and allow you to come down to more of it's called your neutral, your homeostasis nervous center. You'll come down from like a fight or flight response if you're being present. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think about how much of the time we're task driven and we're on autopilot, and we're barely noticing things in our path. So
sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go right ahead.
This is where people lose sight of, they don't notice digestive issues. They don't notice they're tired. They don't notice they're in pain because they are shutting down that part of themselves and not bridging the mind and the body, and in that moment, you really get connected to yourself.
That's wonderful. So what type of results have you achieved with those you've coached?
Oh, there's so many. Every individual client or circumstance has been vastly different. And keep in mind, that's usually because when we talk about goals and we talk about what they would like to achieve, it can be polarizing. Someone can truly only care about weight loss, and someone else can they're caring really deeply about their internal health. Usually with someone that comes to me about weight loss or something more, I call it surface level, we end up digging into the deeper reasons behind it. If it's very deep, I outsource them to a therapist, but it all depends. In terms of physical results, it could be decreased chronic pain, rehabilitating an injury, as I do work physically with clients as well. It could be digestive improvements. They could work on their diaphragmatic breathing and actually have improved sleep quality and quantity just from doing that, opening up their parasympathetic nervous system. Postural improvements is huge. Having someone not even know that they're rounded in their upper back and then actually feeling the change once they implement some of the solutions is really incredible. And then there's the mental outcomes that are Probably more, I mean, the physical of course matters, but the changes in the mindset and around their health and around their thoughts is really incredible. So reducing negative thinking, acknowledging that they have a critical voice in their mind, and just general stress and anxiety reduction, improving relationships. I mean, I could go on and on. Like, there's so many things that can come from working with someone on their health that it's probably too much to list.
Can't think of a better time for people to make it happen. So,
Yeah.
So how can they make it happen? What sorts of things would you do to help them implement?
Yeah, there's definitely things that if you're listening into this podcast and everything we're talking about, you know, it makes sense. And you're thinking, well, what are the next steps? I mean, there's a lot you can do even without my personal services. There's a lot you can do to get started and start changing how you're looking at your health and wellness. And I would say the number one thing you should do that people tend to neglect on is start to utilize your benefits. So if you're working for a company and you know you have benefits and you don't even know what those benefits are, I would highly encourage you to look that up right away. A lot of companies you can look up online, you can find out your balances. If that's not something you've already done, I would highly recommend that. And then if that's something you know about, but you're ready to book some appointments. I personally have a very extensive list of practitioners that I work with that I'm more than happy to refer out to, but you can ask around. I'm sure someone in your life has, an RMT or a chiropractor or a therapist that they speak very highly of. This is a gift. If you work in any sort of company and you have benefits, it is a gift, and it is something you should truly be grateful for and take advantage of those things, because at the end of the day, those benefits you're actually already paying for, so you might as well be utilizing. So that's probably my first tip, a takeaway from our chat today. Second thing would be, if you are responsible for a team or you have any sort of direct reports, I would encourage you to set up a call with them that has nothing to do with business, and I would see how they're feeling and where they're at. And I'm sure some leaders have already done this, given we are in a pandemic, but it'll save you a lot of time in the long run if you become aware of what are their motivational drivers and what gets them down, and it'll allow you to be that role model for them and to set them up for success, and not being afraid to have those conversations. But at the end of the day, usually if you're afraid of those conversations, it's because you haven't done the work yourself. So I would highly recommend you're taking this information in mostly for yourself. And that leads to my third tip, which would be asking yourself what area of your personal health, you've been putting off or not being accountable for. I hear this time and time again. I know, but I'm not doing anything about it, Mm-hmm. And I always say, knowing and doing, there's a big fat line. And so you need to get in touch with why are you not taking advantage of the resources that you have? Because if it's a matter of not doing it, but knowing you should do it, that's a behavioral mental shift, right? That's not a lack of resources. So I would say that tends to be the more popular response. And I would hope during COVID and this isolation, people are starting to, be more empowered around controlling their own health destiny.
Well, you brought up some really good points. I mean, they're in a leadership role. They should be modeling the types of behavior. If they don't know what the benefit programs include, how can they direct their employees?
Exactly. And we pick up on nonverbal communication. I'm sure you know this from your profession, isn't it? Like 90%,
yes,
80% of communication is nonverbal. So yeah, you're setting the tone, and you are responsible for, if you're running a team, you are responsible for how they perceive you, and you want to be approachable. And you also want to, like I said, you want to show them how important it is to be healthy.
That's wonderful. So you've shared a lot with us, and you've given me and I'm sure everyone listening a lot to think about. What if you were to summarize what you include in a program? Maybe that would help us to sort of see, is this a fit for us? And maybe there's some folks who could want to reach out to you after the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. So I start with every client the same. We do a series of individualized assessments, and this is so we can look at total health. So total health for me means emotional intelligence, at its core wellness and performance. And that can mean fitness, that can mean just general physical health. And then I do nutrition and lifestyle assessments as well as a mindfulness assessment. So I look at the total picture, what areas of your health are lacking, and using, something scientifically validated or quantified allows me to combine what I see that's more qualitative with what I observe in those assessments. And then I build out a customized implementation plan. So this will obviously depend on someone's goals and what kind of results they want to obtain. I have a 3-month program that tends to be where I recommend people start. I do not believe sustainable change happens in less than 3 months. I just don't. And so, the details are available on my website, but it's a series of check-ins, and it used to be in person. I'm doing a lot more online these days, but a series of check-ins with tasks that are meant to be completed. And I'm almost like an accountability coach where they know what they need to do, and I'm there for support. And I have clients, like I said, they go longer than 3 months, but that's the program I tend to recommend. I do also do just individual assessments if someone is only interested in a particular area of their health.
Before we wrap up, what's the best way to reach you? So if someone's interested out there, how would they get to know more about your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple ways. So if you would like more information, I have some general information on my website. It is executiveperformancehealth.com. You can also contact me directly through email. It's support@meganmackrory.com, and it's MEGANMACKRORY.com. I'm also on Instagram. It's less professional and more my health and lifestyle side of my business at Ali Mack, MEGALIMACK, or you can find me on Facebook under my own name. And I should mention that a lot more prior to COVID, I was doing many corporate wellness on-site kind of lunch and learns and seminars on a host of topics. And I'm still working with some clients. We are doing a lot of stretch and mobility seminars over Zoom, as that seems to be the popular option these days. So teaching people how to mobilize without leaving their desk. Because again, it's realistic. My programs are realistic. That's really the takeaway. I'm not a quick fixer.
That's terrific. And I think that's even, we're not even walking to our cars or from our cars anymore.
No, I know.
So getting away from the desk is so important, or exercising at your desk. I'll be sure to make sure we post your information as we promote this podcast.
Yeah, great.
Thank you so much for your time. And you shared so much helpful information. I am certainly inspired.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. I love this. I'm so passionate about helping people.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Megan. And thank you everyone for listening. Stay tuned for more Learning Unleashed in the GTA podcast from your Toronto Chapter Membership Experience Committee. Wishing you the very best.